The Shadow Home Secretary, I think, has actually spent his entire speech not actually talking about any of the real challenges the country faces, but simply playing. I think he does protest a little too much, the sort of wriggling here. This is obviously not he would not do very well under interrogation.
Now, is this the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper's best takedown yet? Now, this happened in the Immigration and Home Affairs debate on July the 23rd, 2024. Well, our Jimmy Dimley begged to move Amendment I, and for 20 minutes, everyone else begged him to get on with it instead of pandering to the backbenchers for support for his leadership bid, and then scolding the electorate for booting them out because this extreme Brexit Tory government had a record to be proud of. Then moved on to saying that within half a second of the Labour government taking over, all them green shoots that was carefully crafted over 14 years but that was invisible to everyone else have been smashed, destroyed and left in a bloody heap for everyone to see. Also, 50 zillion refugees came from France in a single dinghy this morning as well. It wasn't 50 zillion, but in our Jimmy Dimley's fantasy world, it might as well have been. As he continued to say to the heaving numbers of backbenchers who could be asked to turn up to hear this utopia that was created by 14 years of Tory rule and gruel that nobody else could see, he then continued that the country has gone to the dogs. Seas are now boiling, raining frogs and cats are now chasing dogs. Mass hysteria after the Labour government's mismanagement of 14 years of Tory salting the earth. Yvette Cooper was also criticised for not telling the Rwandan government, and they had to find out about this in the press, that we're no longer going to grow their economy for nothing in return, using taxpayers' money. And at the same time, Yvette Cooper was a raving bonkers lunatic for not allowing us to continue to grow the Rwandan economy for nothing in return, with using taxpayers' money as well, all the while showing how much of a strong leader he'll be in opposition to the backbenchers, and he was staring down all Commons as leader by bricking it on a number of occasions when Yvette Cooper asked him to give way. Well, after saying more of the country going down the pan and how bad Yvette Cooper had been as Home Secretary for the last 14 years, he did finally muster the courage to give way.
Nice. Thank the Shadow Home Secretary for giving way. It's a shame to puncture his fantasy and bring him down to the real world, in which he and his party have trebled net migration and left us with the highest level of spring boat crossings on record. But perhaps he could answer just one factual question. He has spent £700 million over 2.5 years running the Rwanda scheme. Can he tell us how many asylum seekers he has sent?
As I said on the radio this morning, if the right honourable lady is going to pluck figures out of the air, you should avoid nice round numbers, because it's a bit of a giveaway.
Not going to answer then, Jimmy Dimley? Thought not. Well, anyway, he carried on with the country going to hell in a handcart now that Labour are in charge after 14 years of Tory rule and gruel, destroying the NHS and the police cutbacks of 21,000 under Tory rule. Speaking of the 21,000 police cutbacks, Tory MP for Hambley Valley, Paul Holmes, asked Jimmy Dimley if he was proud as he was of the extra 20,000 extra policing have been arrived after losing 21,000 police since 2010. Then Jimmy Dimley painted the last 14 years as a world of honey, sugar lumps and treacle, and then patted themselves on the back for doing a fantastic job, while continuing his pitch to be the next leader of some of the swivel-eyed loons at the back. He then made quite an accusation.
So I really hope that the right honourable lady takes this seriously. She can chuckle all she likes, but this is about kids getting stabbed on the streets of London, and she should take this more seriously. She should take this more seriously. We introduced tougher sentences. She should recognise that we introduced tougher sentences under the Public Order Act to clamp down on disruptive protests, the benefit of which we have already seen this week with the jailing of Just Stop Oil protesters, as well as plans to grant the police further powers to clamp down on protests that go too far and disrupt the lives of people around this country.
The Shadow Home Secretary from giving way. He knows he should not make disgraceful, unfounded allegations like that about my response to knife crime when he knows I have met with families right across the country who are devastated by knife crime, including in towns and smaller communities and suburbs right across the country where this terrible crime is going up, and where his party, when in government, repeatedly failed to bring in the bans on serious weapons on our streets. Will he now support this party and this government when we bring in the bans on ninja swords as well as on dangerous machetes that he should have brought in long ago?
Mr. Speaker, I made the observation that whilst I was talking about young people getting stabbed, the Honourable Lady was chatting and chuckling with her colleagues on the front bench. That was a statement of fact.
As Laura Kunsberg once said, that's quite a charge, Jimmy Dimley. Also, let's be honest here, who was the one who made a joke about spiking his wife's drink? Just saying. So whether what you're saying is true, which, if I'm honest, I'm not sure it is really, but anyway, he's the last one to stand on the moral high ground, isn't he? Well, he then took more interventions and carried on his pitch to be leader, lambasting the electorate for being ungrateful for the last 14 years, where they've never had it so good for booting them out of power. Yeah, how dare you, disgraceful behaviour. Well, then up steps the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper, and oh boy, she didn't hold back.
You wouldn't think, though, to listen to the Shadow Home Secretary, you wouldn't think he'd just spectacularly lost a general election, when apparently under the Conservatives we've just all had it so good for such a long period of time. But I am glad to see him enjoying opposition so much. Long may it continue. It is, though, maybe the final day of the King's Speech debate, but it is, of course, only the beginning of the Tory leadership hustings. The Shadow Home Secretary's name is on the list. We look forward to his launch, maybe later this week. Very exciting. As someone who has unsuccessfully stood for their party's leadership in the past, I do have some sympathy with his predicament. It's not only that he is only the fifth favourite in the bookies, he's not even the leading candidate from Essex. He's not even the leading candidate from his Shadow Home Office team. But I have some bad news for both the Shadow Home Secretary and the Shadow Security Minister. Their chances have been dealt hammer blow by that strategic brain for the Conservative Party, the deputy leader of the Conservative Party, who was elected in 2015 at the same time as both of them, and who was asked, who are the stars of your generation? And he said, there's only two people from my generation that I could see leading the Conservative Party, Rishi Sunak or Vicky Atkins. How disappointing is that, Mr. Speaker? Discounted by the great election guru of the Conservative Party even before they started. I will give way on that subject.
Just for expectation management, when is she actually going to start talking about her portfolio?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Shadow Home Secretary, I think, has actually spent his entire speech not actually talking about any of the real challenges the country faces, but simply playing to the backbenches of the Conservative Party with a fantasy leadership application speech. And what is it about these former Home Secretaries and former Home Office ministers? Do you know there's apparently 7 of the last 7 Home Office ministers in Cabinet? 6 of them are apparently running. We've got the former Home Secretary, the former Home Secretary before that, the former Home Secretary but one before that, who strangely was actually herself, because never forget it is possible to be sacked from the same job twice, the Home Secretary before that, and the former Security Minister and the former Immigration Minister. And they have quite a record between them. They have trebled net migration. They let boat crossings hit a record high this spring. They decimated neighbourhood policing. There are 10,000 fewer neighbourhood police and PCSOs on our streets. They let record numbers of crimes go unsolved, bust the Home Office budget by billions, and yet spent £700 million sending just 4 volunteers to Rwanda. So if they are now lining up to do to the Tory party what they've already done to the Home Office and the country, well, frankly, they deserve each other. And every one of them championed that policy on Rwanda that the Shadow Home Secretary, to be fair to him, did notoriously describe as batshit crazy. Well, maybe that's what you need to stand to be the Tory leader right now. And we have heard, Ms Deputy Speaker, that they are going to run this contest until November. We've got 5 months of the... Oh, does the Shadow Home Secretary want to deny having ever described the Rwanda programme and the development partnership as batshit? Because I will give way to the right honourable member if he would like to.
More than happy if she wants to say when and where and to who that was said, then carry on.
So I think he's the one that said it. So I think he's the one that will know. I mean, if he wants to deny it, I won't say it again, honestly. I will not say it again if he wants to deny that he ever said it, but I think he does protest a little too much. The sort of wriggling here. This is obviously not he would not do very well under interrogation. Right, look, this we've heard today, this contest is going to run until November. We've got 5 months of this. We've hardly got any Tory MPs here because they're all off doing their little chats and meetings. It's like a cross between Love Island and The Jungle. You've got Rob and Suella have broken up, and now John's gone off with Kemi, and everyone's looking over their shoulder for snakes and rats, and apparently somebody's had a nervous breakdown, and that is probably all of their backbenchers dreading getting a little text saying another candidate wanting for a chat, and you can just see it. Look at them on there. They're all of them really saying, I'm a Tory MP, get me out of here. And that is exactly what our Labour MPs have just done. They've got a lot of Tory MPs out of here because the country is crying out for change. For what the Prime Minister has described as a decade of national renewal on our economy, on our public services, and on our relationship with the world. And on politics itself, bringing politics back into public service again.
Don't sit on the fence, Yvette. Tell us what you really think. Anyway, then she continued with a statement, answering questions that needed to be addressed. But ouch, completely demolished him, didn't she? If that was his pitch to be laid, I'm not sure he even impressed even himself and his wonderful Red Sox with that. Also, say what you like about Yvette Cooper, like her or not. Not too sure whether trying to outdo a seasoned politician like Yvette Cooper is a good strategy, Jimmy Dimler. She's eaten more accomplished politicians for breakfast and still had room for a bowl of Frosties after, so you've no chance, mate. Now, I don't have a problem with this extreme Brexit Tory government saying they're going to hold this Labour government to account, but after the last 14 years of Tory rule and gruel, you're trying to say that Labour have big boots to fill. I'm not too sure you're going to get away with that. Maybe they will, who knows? But what do you guys think of that interaction? Did Yvette Cooper tear him a new one? Did Jimmy Dimler protest too much? Let me know down below and I shall bid you farewell and take care, my friends.